please introduce the Premier. Hi, Premier. Good morning.
Sir, I wanted to ask you about a citizen's FOIPOP that's making the rounds on social media today. It shows that, as we already knew, Cabot had submitted its proposal to the province towards the end of August to potentially get access to part of West Mabou Beach Provincial Park. And then the response from the then Deputy Minister, sort of towards mid to late September, was, okay, we're going to enter into negotiations. We know now, we've known for a little while, that the province is having talks with Cabot, but at what point would the province have made that public had a reporter not asked Minister Rushton about it at the time in the legislature?
I think when there's something to take to the people. So obviously this is a long stand. This has been discussed for a long time, back and forth, many different ways, and even a couple times since the time that I've been Premier, and before that, no doubt as well. So what we're trying to look at is what would be the pros and cons. What would be something that would be a benefit to Nova Scotians, and I think that was the process that was happening. What are you asking to do? Would it be in the interest of Nova Scotia? What are the pros? What are the cons? And I think there was some kind of probably some discussions about that. How much of the park would they use? Would they maintain the rest of the park? How long? What's all that type of stuff, right? So, but I think those would have been some back and forth on that, and I think we've actually reached the conclusion now that the asks that the proponent would have would be unreasonable, and that there's not even something for us to take to the next stage, which would have been. The next stage would have been, First Nations consultations, but I don't think we've reached the conclusion that there's not even something to do that. So there's really nothing to talk about.
Saying this is a done deal.
When did you decide that?
Just over the last few days. I think there was still some back and forth as to what would be the asks. And we just determined, I think, at the department that the asks were unreasonable when it was all said and done.
Broad strokes, what was the deal killer?
I just think that a combination, as I've mentioned, like how much of the park, what's in it for Nova Scotians, how long is the term, how is it remediated, these types of things. And I think in the end, they just reached the conclusion that the asks were unreasonable or not in the best interest of Nova Scotians. So we're looking at a lot of things all the time, always having a lot of discussions and trying to triage issues. And I think this one just kind of came to that.
And that was the recommendation from the department?
That the asks are unreasonable.
To what degree, I mean, I appreciate you're acting on a department recommendation, but you've obviously heard the public feedback, and I do appreciate, and you said as much to us the last time we saw you, that you have heard from some people who liked the idea as well, but the more vocal sect that we've heard from has not liked this idea. To what degree?
Such is life.
Yeah. Heavy is the crown, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? But I wonder to what degree that feedback you were hearing played any factor in this whatsoever.
We listen carefully to Nova Scotians all the time, the pros, the cons, and we just try to wade through it. But at the end, as a government, we're just trying to make a decision that does this benefit Nova Scotians? And then is it worth taking to the next step? And this one never got, we'll get to the next step.
When was that decided?
Over the last couple of days. The department informed me.
I'm just wondering, did you get a lot of feedback from, we certainly are hearing a lot.
Actually, no.
No, you didn't?
No, I mean, I think the local MLA was hearing from both sides. I was hearing from some people, but not, like, I've had the issues that I've waded through in my time as Premier. This one wouldn't rank, to be honest. It honestly wouldn't.
You probably heard, or Mr. McQuarrie certainly heard, some of the chatter that, for lack of a better way of putting it, the fix was in on this, right? Rodney McDonald is a buddy of this government. He's a buddy of Mr. McQuarrie's. The company has ties to the party through the years. What would you say the message is to folks in the public who thought that perhaps, hey, this was already a done deal, we had no chance?
I think it speaks to the bigger issue, right? So I remember one time I went to register my son at hockey, and somebody said, "Oh, you're here to campaign." I said, no, I'm here to register my son at hockey, right? So everything that an elected official does is looked at through some lens. And oftentimes it's still shocking to me how badly some people will be smeared just because they know me or we die or something. So that's just the way of the world. We make the best decisions that we can at any given time with the information we have. I've certainly lost lots of friends over politics. I've certainly met lots of people through politics that have become friends. But we make the best decision we can with the information we have. And that's all there is to it. I'm not doing this for anything other than to try to make Nova Scotia a better place for Nova Scotians.
Were you surprised by the recommendation? Because 2 weeks ago, it sounded like you thought this was kind of an intriguing idea along the lines of.
I think we assess these ideas on the benefits for Nova Scotians, right? So I'm intrigued by lots of ideas, and lots of them just don't make it past the intrigue. This one, I think there was some discussions about could it get to a place where it was worthy of actual consultations, and I think there was some back and forth to see if that was possible, and in the end, it sounds like it wasn't possible.
Kim Maslin told us 2 weeks ago that the government would be open to looking at other protected areas if there were proposals. It would certainly hear from proponents if they were interested in those. Is that still the case?
I think you have to step back and you say, what's the intention of protected areas? It's to make sure Nova Scotians can enjoy them for tourism benefit, for recreational benefit, and you always try to keep that goal in mind and say other ways to achieve that goal. And now some people say the only way to properly respect protected land is to put a fence around it and put a chain on it and say nobody shall enter these lands. But somebody else may say there's lots of ways that you can protect it for the benefit of Nova Scotians. So we're just always trying to balance that.
They want to lease the park for. What was the?
The details are all I can't remember the actual number, to be honest. I didn't really dig into it. I was just trying to say, is there a discussion to be had here? And if there is, tell me why you think so. And if there isn't, tell me why you think not. And I just kind of that's all it was.
Is it that there's no possibility of this coming to this Maboo Beach, or can Cabot go back home and revise their proposal and then come back to you with this other thing, or is that totally off the table?
I don't know what they're going to do. I just know where we're at today.
Minister Smith went to China recently on a seafood trade mission. Your government's not really been to China the way that the previous one was. Is this an acknowledgement that the relationship between us and them needs some work, given our dependence on them for seafood exports, or what is the thinking behind that? And might you go to China at some point?
I wouldn't rule it out, but I think the world is so dramatically different now in terms of trading partners, reliable trading partners, diversification of markets. So we have a new federal government who's also establishing a new relationship with China. It certainly appears to be the case. So before the minister went there, we engaged with the federal government to say, is this a good idea, bad idea? Do you care? What and we're encouraged to try and establish relationships. So it's a big market. The region is a big region. So I think what you could read into that too is we're serious about diversification, and we're looking at big regions and where are the opportunities and see what's possible.
Part of this about shoring up a very important market when at a time the most important market is murky at best.
Yeah, it's about looking at all potential new markets and additional markets.
I want to ask you one other thing about this, because you mentioned that you had some conversations with the feds. Prior to Minister Smith's trip and maybe earlier in your tenure as Premier, had there been some suggestion from Ottawa that they didn't want you folks going to China the way that previous governments had?
The relationship between Canada as a country and China was a lot frostier then, for good reasons. And that's changing. So we're just trying to be mindful of that change and be respectful of it and see what's possible.
And just adding to that, how did your recent mission go as, having energy now under your portfolio, going to, I believe, was it Texas and Calgary?
Yeah, I think it was important. The main objective, especially in natural resources in general, but certainly in natural gas and oil as well, is to put Nova Scotia back in the discussion. We haven't been in the discussion. We've been out of the discussion. Companies would tell me we haven't been thinking about Nova Scotia, but I'm trying to get their intrigue, just like people try to get me intrigued about things. I'm trying to make sure that Nova Scotia is a part of the discussion. And I think it was productive.
Mr. Carney is set to announce some more major projects for that federal designation later today. Will Wind West be among them?
Well, it already is. It's already on the major projects list. So we're continuing to move forward with that. As a matter of fact, part of my trip to Calgary, I met with the major projects office to talk about it. So we have, I'm not expecting a new project on this list. And certainly Wind West is firmly in the radar for everyone, including a mention in the federal budget. So we'll continue to move forward with that, and we have lots of other ideas that we're formulating as well. But it's still an active file.
There's a big difference between it being listed in a budget and announced as part of these active projects. Can you elaborate on progress and where your conversations have been since the budget has been announced?
I guess I'd say it another way. If they had given up on it, they wouldn't have mentioned it in the budget. They haven't given up on it. They're very intrigued by it and excited by it, as am I, and as are Nova Scotians.
On budget day, the federal government announced new immigration levels for the next few years, which is going to restrict the number of temporary foreign workers, the number of students. What does the province think of those numbers? Is that you're happy with that, with those levels, or are those going to be problems?
We're going to work with the federal government on that. Obviously, it's kind of their thing, and so we have respect for their thoughts and insight on that. I think as a country, certainly there was some big problems in big regions, and those problems weren't always the same in every area. So we're respectful of their decision. We want to grow our economy. People drive economies. We have needs for people, but we have to balance that too, to make sure people have all the concerns that Nova Scotians have. I share access to healthcare, access to housing, access to public services. So we have to make sure we're balanced. And I think we're getting to a much better place in this province, certainly with the state of healthcare. The vacancy rate is changing in a favorable direction. So there's work to be done on both of those files, but we'll continue to do that.
Last year, Quebec changed their laws around medically assisted death to allow those with neurodegenerative disorders to put in an advanced directive similar to those with terminal illnesses. Would Nova Scotia or you be supportive of this kind of legislation that allows people with Huntington's or Alzheimer's to put in advanced directives for medically assisted death?
That's not something that I've been following, and it's not something that we're discussing. It's not on my radar to make any changes to that.
On the line, on the phone's Jennifer Henderson with the Halifax Examiner. You can go ahead. Jennifer, can you hear me okay? She's just coming out. Hi, Jennifer, are you there on the line? You might be on mute. Okay.
Good.
We'll move on.
I do have another question.
Try to hold you off the hook.
Thank you for that.
I'm sorry.
Effort.
Remember me next time.
I know this has been touched on already, but have you or will you approve the bylaw put in place for blocking infilling in Dartmouth Cove by chance?
It's still being reviewed. There are some ambiguities, and there's a lot of questions. Even I continue to get different information, kind of daily as to what it means. But certainly, my understanding of the, because I just want to use this as an example because it's something I hear. I was told that the bylaw for the ARM would allow infilling if the federal government allowed it. And that the Dartmouth Cove one had a little twist on it that it didn't really matter what the feds said. So those are kind of two differences. One would allow and one was kind of, so, but even now, I'm not sure if that's the case, right? So there's enough ambiguities that the department is reviewing it and they'll come back.
There, do you know?
I think it's the end of the month or something. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not today.
Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about one last thing.
Michael was going to give it, but sorry guys, thank you.
Thank you.